Hello, I'm Jonathan Womack, and welcome to this edition of Community Insider. I want to welcome you to our show, and we're going to be looking inside the newly opened Black History Museum of Warren County. We have the director of the museum, Mr. Wayne Wolford, and y'all have seen his face plenty of times on local TV. Wayne, we want to thank you so much for once again letting us in on something that is so very important to Warren County, to all the citizens of Warren County, and you guys are going to be blown away. Won't you stay tuned? That and much more coming up on this edition of Community Insider.
You know, and how far we've come. We've came a long way, but we still need to come a little farther. And it's really amazing that my daughter doesn't believe things that we tell them happened back then, and they like, oh, it didn't, you know. It's like, but I said, it really happened. We couldn't do things that they've always been able to do, and they just don't realize it, and I think they don't appreciate it like we did.
Welcome to another edition of Community Insider. Join us as we travel Middle Tennessee, uncovering history and experiencing the adventure of unique stories and events coming to you inside your community.
Hello, this is Wayne Wolford. I'm Director and Curator of the Black History Museum of Warren County, Tennessee. The reason I made the title so long because there is an Oregon, so we don't want to be going to Oregon to see this museum. I want to welcome you to actually come in and see and view all the artifacts and all the stories that we have located here. Our location is on 203 West Main Street, Suite 13. This is in McMinnville, Tennessee. And we can be reached at area code 931-212-6609. You would have to come in the side door because the front door is not available at this time. Once you come in, you're going to see the ramp and you'll see the logo, I think that's behind me, and you'll know exactly where you are. We want to welcome each and every one, I don't care, near, far, whatever, to come in and get educated and find out what this museum is about. Yes, when you come in museums, and basically anywhere when you have a museum, we don't have a gift shop set up yet, but what we are doing, we are selling the t-shirts here, and these t-shirts are running $20 a piece, and for the super extra large, they're $22, so you don't get shocked on the price. We have many of them available here for you to come in and purchase. We also have credit cards, we accept credit cards too. Right now, because before the 20th, what we're going to do is we're going to be selling yearbooks. These are 2 yearbooks from the 1940s from the Rosenwald School. And we're going to have cups and pencils and glasses and so forth. So in other words, we're going to have enough for you to come in and purchase something if you want to. And also, while you're here and you go through here, please give. We have a little box over here that says donation to the museum. So we would appreciate it if you write a check, throw a few dollars in there, whatever, to help us going. Because this is free access. You can come in free, so there's no admission to come in. What I'd like to point out is a recognition to the generous donators. What we have here is a plaque. We have 4 plaques here. One is platinum, one is gold, one is silver, and one is bronze. We basically started this one with the $100 donators all the way up to, I think it's 1,000. And I think the silver was from 1,000 to 5,000, and then the gold from 5,000 to 10, and then the platinum from 10 to until. So this is one of the things. And if you want to donate and have your name up here on the plaque, hey, please feel free to do so. Okay, What I'd like to show you right now is during the urban renewal time, this was back in '71, on the other side of the water tower, on the east side of McMinnville, these darker portions showing how the house was shaped. And a lot of these buildings were condemned. Some of them didn't get condemned. But if you go through there now, compared to here, it would be hard for you to depict and visualize where these houses were and what was going on. Even Bernard, the Rosenwald School, they had it halfway, so they didn't know whether they wanted to tear that down or not. So there's a lot of them that really were destroyed, and some of them, which were pretty nice buildings, but they got destroyed anyway. Here on this map, this shows you how the houses look and the shape of the houses. This shows you the property that people own. And we have all the names up here, the owners and the data that own. Some of them own several pieces of property at this time. So this came from the same era, 1971. So people that have lived here, when they bring you grandkids, great-grandkids or whatever, and show where some of the ancestors, where your ancestors own some of this property. This would be very unique.
Wayne, urban renewal. Explain to people, what is that? What did that mean for people in McMinnville at that time?
Urban renewal was, it was more like, well, I'll say rehabilitating or trying to change the face of your community or your city. A lot of big cities do that. By coming from St. Louis, I noticed that a lot of buildings were condemned and in bad shape, and they built, instead of the projects and so forth, they started building apartments downtown and to beautify and so forth. But realistically, this was the only part that was torn down. It was on the black side of town. This is the part that a lot of people tried, couldn't understand, but understood. And I'll just leave that like that. Because if you lived it, you know what it's about. Yeah, just a little bit of sports history as far as McMinnville was concerned. In this room here, we have several collectible items where we've had people to go as far as the World Series. We had people to play in the pros, as far as baseball, basketball, and we also have a female coach that's a college coach at this particular time. One point I want to kind of bring out to you now, about 23 years ago, I put up a monument in Ramsey Park, and that was one of the things that I want to establish for as Black Americans in Warren County. Right now, the museum has a fundraiser going on over there. We have 3 sections, and people are purchasing bricks for $100 or $50 and put in their loved ones, themselves or whatever, or people that they know in commemoration with these bricks. The bricks run from $100, and then the smaller bricks are $50. And this is a fundraiser for the Black History Museum of Warren County, Tennessee, and it's a historical thing that where once we get it done by professionals, it'll be laid out and it'll be there for as long as we can remember or think.
Tell me just a little bit about the baseballs you have over here.
Okay, with the baseballs, when I did put the monument up, I had a special day where we unveiled the monument, and I had as many ball players as I could that was alive at that particular time to come and sign the balls. On the monument over there, it says from the 1930s to basically the 1970s, because around after the 1970s, late 70s, softball came into effect. And a lot of people didn't have jobs. They played baseball, but they didn't have jobs. So teams like the Zurich, Ulsters, and teams like that, softball teams wanted to have their prestige. So they tried to get the best ball players they could to come in. So they would hire them, give them a job, plus they could play ball for the actual company. So that's when things started deteriorating, and that's when most of the teams broke up at that particular time. We were blessed with First National Bank, Steve and Kate Trust Fund, that we got a portion of money to represent the Rosenwald School. The first black large school in Tennessee was a Rosenwald, and there was a particular guy, which is an agent, that helped with his money and with his time to get the school built here in McMinnville. So it was built in 1920, but the kids didn't get to move into the school until 1921. And the school stayed abreast for all the way up to 1946. And then from 46, it burned down. And then after 46, we had another school built a year later. So high school students went to one church, the grade school kids went to another church. Then after that year was over with, in 47, then there was another school here which was rebuilt. And this school remained until September the 7th, 1982. We tried to replicate this room as much as possible with the actual globe with the flag with 48 stars in it, several of the old school desks that children used at that time. And so there's several artifacts in here, games, jacks, and so forth. These were done. I got these when Penny's closed. When Penny's closed, they helped us out quite a bit. So we got this done with Hastings Auto.
Wow.
Yeah, the airbrushing, because they did some stuff for the Titans. And so, so what they did, they went on and painted these guys up, their fingernails, their toes. And
I've seen his motorcycle.
yes, and so this one guy right here, I went to Manchester, and there was a little doll that had that outfit on, and so that outfit is probably reaching way back to the 1940s. So yeah, that originates the room very well.
I noticed you featured this. Just a few comments about the belly stove.
Okay, that stove was donated through Hiwassee Church. If you kind of get a little bit in front of it, you can almost see the flames coming out from it. And kids used to fire this up and take the ashes out and all this kind of stuff. So when we saw it, it was in pretty bad shape. But once it got sandblasted and painted, that's a beautiful part of history. Beautiful part of history. That used to stand across from Hiwassee Church, which is in Morrison now and still going strong. This was my first room to experiment with. Even though I had a lot of artifacts and so forth throughout the museum, this was the one I wanted to put together and see what it would be like. Since I've been in the military and I retired after 20 years, I had a pretty good feeling of kind of how I wanted this room to be represented. Once we get the Marines and once we get a couple other uniforms in here, then this is going to be set up just the way I want it to be. I have a television here that has basically all of the military people, photos of the military people that I have. On the wall, there are collections here, but these are just a few of the collections of the people that served the military here. There was a time I checked it out for as World War II, where Warren County had 102 enlisted people in service at that time, compared to now, which is maybe 4. So that kind of tells you about the population during that particular time. There's a lot of good artifacts in here in the display cases. Once the Air Force and Marine guys and ladies come to me, then I'll be able to put more stuff out. On one portion of the wall, I have American Legion Post 208. There is another American Legion Post 173, but I've been the commander for this for a long time, and I'm trying to keep it historically because it was chartered in 1945. And even though we don't have but 25 people in the organization right now, it is still going and still going strong. So this American Legion Post 208. And we don't have honor guard like you've seen in the military funerals around this area, where there's a honor guard, but if I'm not mistaken, it's 173. It used to be 173 in VFW, but right now I think it's just 173. And those guys are doing a great job. But I did want to just kind of show you this area here, because this is basically where it started. This is what I wanted to kind of get an idea of what it looked like. So I was very pleased with it. I'd like to take this moment to show appreciation for my board of directors and everyone else that has worked with me and helping me getting this established. It was handed down through upstairs. So when I got the mission to do this, I knew it was going to be a goal, but I needed to surround myself with good people, and I'm surrounded with very good people. They are helping tremendously, financially, supportive, working, the whole deal. As far as the community is concerned, I am very pleased with the artifacts that people have come in and shared with us, and hopefully to have more as far as Martin County is concerned. But I did want to just say thank you very much for your support and the support that you will be helping to give. Thank you.
The interesting thing about the Grayson family is one of the pictures that we're actually going to be featuring today shows 4 generations of the Graysons, and this picture not only shows Miss Gayle's sister, who was at this time about 1 year old. This would have been about 1946, but it also shows her mother, her grandfather, and her great-grandfather. Is that right, Miss Gayle?
Yes.
So, Miss Gayle, you have this awesome opportunity to tell just a little bit about this older photo. It wasn't every day everybody got to see photos or take photos in 1946, but for whatever reason, the archives has been found of your family here. When did you first find out about this photo?
They always had a picture of it around.
Oh, wow, okay. And so this is something you knew was there, but I'm sure you learned more about that, I guess, in time. What got you interested in history?
Just seeing how things were, you know, and how far we've come. We've came a long ways, but we still need to come a little farther. And it's really amazing that my daughter doesn't believe things that we tell them happened back then, and they like, oh, it didn't, you know. It's like, but I see, it really happened. We couldn't do things that they've always been able to do, and they just don't realize it, and I think they don't appreciate it like we did. You know.
So let's talk about that for just a moment. Segregation in Warren County. You as a teenager, during this time period, I can't imagine being a teenager, a black teenager during this time and what you saw. For people who has no idea, what was it like?
Well, we didn't really know any better, so what we knew was just us. So it didn't really bother us that we couldn't go places and things because we didn't have the money to do it anyway. But when it came to the education part, I remember us getting books, and of course the white schools got the new books and we got their hand-me-downs because they would have their names in them, so we knew they were hand-me-downs. But we still appreciated it, you know, and just tried to learn from that. But still, you know, it kind of stings a little bit, but you just roll with the punches. But then we did have a few clubs, and then we started having our own little things to you know, to let our kids know that they are pretty too, you know. And so that's what we done for a while. And then finally, you know, they started accepting it.
Finally came around.
Came around. I think a couple's won.
We talked off camera in great depth about this photo. This one photograph shows 4 generations. I believe that your family has a long history of being overcomers. I think that's one of the things what we're seeing, and including yourself. What would you tell them today?
Well, I would tell them that they need to work. And if you don't have what you want, make do with what you have till you can afford to get what you want. Pay your bills. Don't get in a lot of debt. If you cannot pay it, you don't need it. These kids today want to just buy this and buy that and don't even care whether they pay for it or not, you know. And more times than one, we've tried to help kids, young kids, start out. They burn you every time. You know, my husband, I tell him, I don't think we need to do this. You know, he said, well, people gave us a break, so we need to give them a break. And we wind up losing every time. But I say, well, we tried to help, you know. But the kids don't appreciate nothing nobody do for them anymore. They just want their hand out for you, just give them everything they can. They won't. They don't want to work for it. They just want you to give it to them. And that's not, to me, they don't appreciate it. If you don't work for it, you don't appreciate it. So I just think that kids need to work to get what they need. And then don't try to keep up with the Joneses. Just what you need to survive, you know, do it. And then eventually you can get what you want. That's just the way we live. We just paid our bills and stuff, and then I guess we got lucky, had good jobs, pretty good jobs. My husband had a good job, and I worked, so we made it, you know.
This has been Miss Gayle Locke, resident of Warren County, Tennessee.
My background as a childhood, when I was growing up through the neighborhood, I was having trouble understanding my family, that I loved to tell the truth, and I was getting resented from being a truthful person. The ones that didn't like for me to tell the truth, they didn't want me around them, and I would asked to stay all night with some of my relatives sometimes, which it was my aunt's house, but her daughter was over the house. And when I asked who, she would snarl up at me and kindly say, well, yeah, I guess so. But I had a brother older than me that they just loved him to death. You know, anything he say was okay. So I had to go through life like that, and it was kind of hard. We growed up hard. My mother and father, when we worked, we did a lot of nursery work, blackberry picking, dogwood berries and collected stock for nurseries, and we all worked as a family. I grew up around my grandmother, and she was a good grandmother, but she's a little tough with us. You know, she had choice words she'd say to us, but she wasn't no hating grandmother. She loved us. And whenever I leave home from my father to go stay with her, me and my brother, we'd sit around them, and they do, my grandfather was a buck dancer. He'd go up to the square. He'd leave out of the country, go to the square up by the courthouse where they did knife trading and whittling on cedar sticks. And I would ask my grandfather when he'd go up there, I said, "Grandpa, bring me some peanuts back." So he would go up there and dance, and buck dance, and those guys would throw money down on the ground, and he would earn his money for dancing, and he'd go buy little groceries and things like that and bring it back home to us. And that's the kind of grandfather I have, which we all grew up dancing except my brother. My grandmother, whenever we was big enough to start trying to walk, our legs were a little weak, and we'd just bounce around there, and she'd get the buck dancing and say, "Come on, dance for grandma, come on, dance." And we get the dancing going on, and we just had a good time, and we sat around. We didn't have no radios and TV, so we had to sit around the older people and listen to stories that they told and things that they done in their life, which it was true. And we learned from that, and I love to be around older people, so I got my learning and training from the older people. And as now, I'm 60, going on 64-year-old, but my life is double because I'm 128-year-old in mine, because I live around them old people like that, and I learn a lot and took a shortcut in life to learn these things, and the wisdom, the knowledge that they had, they passed it down to me. As the story goes about hanging out in the streets and things like that, I always prayed to God that I would have some keys for somewhere to live, because I felt persecuted all the time, and it was just a hard life. But God is wonderful, and as I grew older, and which I wasn't a Christian at that time, but God was always with me, and He led me, and the keys that I asked for, He gave me plenty keys. And as I grew older and got married, I had children, and we owned the first house me and my wife built. Then we got separated, and then I went out and bought another place, and then I turned around and bought one here on Ruby Street. And as I say, as the keys, God has given me plenty keys, and I counted some today, and I got up to about 40-something keys. I looked around and seen around, and as I'm talking about keys, the true story is I've got keys here in my hand. So God's been wonderful, and God's a wonderful God. And if you believe in God and trust in God, He will carry you through and see that you have the things you need. You'll never be without anything. And God's a loving God, and He's a caring God. So that's part of my story of my life. But it's been a good life. I thought it was a hard life, but nothing comes easy. You have to strive to do these things the Lord asks you to do, which none of us is perfect, as though He says that, which we're not. And we all make mistakes, but that ain't what God is asking for. He's asking for truth and honesty. That's the best policy, because as He says, the truth will set you free, and it will. So always try to do good, and good will come to you. Amen. May God bless you.